Welcome to Miss V, the Storyteller podcast. You guys, I am so excited. In the month of March, it's all about women. And I have some guests lined up this month to help us with just things in our lives that we probably need help with, that we don't think that we need help with, but we do need help with. So I have an amazing guest. I met her and I thought I knew her from somewhere because I feel like I know her. I talk to her as if I already know her. And we just met a couple of weeks ago. Don't you love that when you meet somebody and you feel like, hmm, her. But anyway, I just love having her, talking to her. She's an amazing person. So her name is Veronica Rodgers, and she is going to share a little bit about herself with us. So go ahead, Veronica, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much, Ms. B, for that wonderful introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Veronica Rodgers, hailing from Richmond, Virginia, and I am the heart and soul behind Carnelian Wealth Solutions. I like to look at it as a sanctuary where women find empowerment to redefine their financial narratives. And I am here in Richmond with my husband, Rashad, and my two beautiful daughters, Morgan and Micah, the joys of my life. So,
Perfect. I love that. And women, especially if you are an entrepreneur, we really need to make sure that we have our finances in order. But you also know that I'm a storyteller and I love using stories to help us to be empowered to be better. So I'm always using stories as a tool to help us. You will remember the story. Now, you'll probably remember the tidbits and all the stuff throughout the interview, but the story is the thing that you'll most likely remember the most. So, Veronica is going to go ahead and she's going to share a story with us, and it's going to help us, you guys. So, pay attention, listen. If you need to, just like, ooh, turn everything off so that you can hear what she has to say. So, Veronica, go ahead and share your story with us.
all right, absolutely. So, I'd just like to ask the audience, have you ever had a time where you felt as if you put everything in place? You lined up all of the items on your plan, dotted every I, and crossed every T, only to realize at the end, when it was time to put that plan in place, that it was not going to actually happen. Well, you see, there was a time in my life where I experienced just that. Most people know me as Veronica, the woman within financial services for over 20 years. Most people know that I am a chartered retirement planning counselor and I'm certified in long-term care. But what you may not know about me is that it hasn't always been this way. Just last year, back on March 7th, 2023, I lost my father to Parkinson's disease. He spent his entire career, life, working hard to make sure he took care of us children. There are three biological children and two step children. We all had everything together in the sense of understanding what his legacy was going to be, what his intent was for when that time did come, because obviously we had to prepare. But when God called him home, we realized that
Mm.
was not going to be the case. And some may ask, well, how could that be? How could that even be possible? My father is just like most parents, especially within the baby boomer generation. He wanted to handle everything on his own,
Mhm.
did not want to let anyone in, even me, his firstborn, who has the experience and resources within financial services. But he just could not let down his guard and barrier to say, I need help. And from there, because of that, his legacy did not come to fruition like he planned. Unfortunately, all the investment properties that he intended for each child to receive upon his passing, they were sold
Oh,
before we could actually see everything take place.
wow.
Unfortunately, on top of that, the planning wasn't there. No one works so hard to reach the finish line of retirement only to realize that even though they may have amassed a certain amount of wealth, just to see it dwindle away because of medical expenses.
Yeah.
So, with improper planning of his actual estate, along with the fact that he had to use assets that he planned to use in retirement only to pay for medical care, be reduced down to nothing. There was nothing left over.
Wow.
Now, please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I enjoyed and I love my father dearly. And it's not necessarily about entitlement. It is about making sure what you want and your dreams come into fruition.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm here sharing this story, this one story alone, to to the world, to let them know and encourage them to see why you really must make sure you stay on top of your plans to ensure that your legacy really lives out the way you want it to be.
Wow. As you were talking, I thought about my dad. And my dad is a little bit like your father, but not quite. My father has always had money. There's never been a time where I've ever seen my dad not have money. Now, he would tell you he doesn't have any money, but that means he doesn't have money for you. That doesn't mean that he doesn't have money. It's like, I don't have money for you, but I have money. So we've always seen my dad in that light of having money. And there was a time when I got in it was a hit and run. I will never forget this story. As a matter of fact, the story came to me just the other day when I was driving. I was coming from the store and I was at a light and there was this U-Haul truck in front of me. Well, they realized they were in the wrong lane. So they decided to back up and they backed up into my car where I was sitting at the light on my phone waiting for it to change. And then I hear this boom and I go flying back. They hit my car. So I
No,
get out of the car, adrenaline kicked in. Let me tell you, when adrenaline kicks in, you just don't know anything. I jump out the car, I look at the front, I'm like, you hit my car, you hit out my car. It was three of them. I had seen them in the grocery store because that's where I was coming from. I saw them, but I really didn't pay any attention. I saw them, they were coming out, and I were coming out. I got in my car, they got in their car. And when the one got out of the car, he came around and he looked at it. He was like, "Oh, I did hit your car. I did." I was like, "Yeah, let's get some information going." Do you know they jumped in the car and they jumped in the U-Haul truck and took off. Now, what you're not
wow.
gonna do is hit my car and then take off running. I was on it. I jumped it. I put that car in gear and I was behind him. I was getting plate numbers. I was going to get everything I can. We got on the interstate and I am flying and crying, just flying and crying. Tears are just, I'm wiping tears and I'm behind them and I'm looking for my pen and I'm trying to write and everything. And it got to the point where I had to get off the interstate. I ended up at my father's house because that was an exit. And I was like, well, I'll just go to dad's house. So I go to my dad's house, I knock on the door, I'm crying. And I'm
Mhm.
upset. I'm like, somebody just hit my car. Somebody just hit my car. And they kept going there. I said, but I got the driver's license. I got the tag numbers and the vehicle, it's a U-Haul truck and it had out-of-state tags on it. And I'm telling my dad, he was like, call the police. Call the police. I called the police. They didn't come out. They took a statement over the phone. My dad was livid. Now, my dad, when it come to his kids, he don't play. He was walking around the house just cussing and fussing, cussing and funny. The man, my dad's an older man. The man, he won't even come out and check it for my daughter. What's? I was like, it's okay, Dad. At least it's reported.
Right.
So then a couple of days passed, my dad calls me with a lawyer. He calls me to say, you need to go to my lawyer. I go to his lawyer, fast forward, come to find out that the U-Haul truck was stolen. That's why they took off. It was stolen.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I had to go to court because the lawyer wanted to do uninsured motorists. He wanted to sue uninsured motorists because they had all the proof and information. I guess they got camera, the things from the camera, traffic cameras or whatever. So it was not, I was not lying. So when I went to court, they were like, she's not lying. I'm like, no, I'm not lying. So I won. My dad called me and I went to get the check. He didn't even ask me, Veronica. We drove to the bank to open a savings account and to open up an account. He was like, because what you're not going to do is spend all this money on anything. You are going to save. My dad so strongly believes in saving, and I was young, but that is exactly what he did. He took us right there. He was like, you need to have an account and you need to get to know these people at the bank. So my dad is like that. But on the flip side of it, this man keeps money around the house because he doesn't believe that you should put all your money into the bank. So he has like the safety and he has like money in there that's not gaining interest, that's not doing anything, but it's his, and he just holds it to his chest.
Oh,
And
wow.
I had gotten I was in school, got some credit cards. Anyway, my dad gave me money to pay off my credit cards. But the thing about it, he didn't have to go to the bank. He walked down the hall, got the money and gave it to me. I'm like, that is so unsafe. I wish somebody would come in my house. First, they got to get through me and then get in the safe. Oh, they'll get something if they try to, just like that. But this story is so relevant to, when we have older parents or even ourselves, we just have to do better with our money. So I have two great questions that I want to ask. The first question is, what was something major that you learned from this story with your dad? From when you all found out all of this, what was something that it's like I would never forget from this experience with dad?
I will never forget the importance, regardless of how uncomfortable it may be, the importance that exists on having open and transparent communication with your family members.
Absolutely. Ooh.
I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. At the end of the day, you all heard me say there are 3 biological children,
Mm-hmm.
stepchildren. So, yes, we had a blended family. Throughout the years, our relationships ebbed and flowed like most people.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, a lot of people probably can relate to this. When you have a parent in failing health, things become even more tense. Communication becomes even harder. And at the end of the day, the only way to make sure your plans, your goals, your dreams, and wishes are fulfilled is to make sure that everyone is on the same page. And
Yes.
that requires open communication from the standpoint of love, love on both sides. From my father's perspective, I honestly wish he would have seen that had he approached all of us together
Mm-hmm.
from the standpoint of, hey guys, I'm doing this and I need to talk to you, everyone together to make sure we're on the same page. That was a sign of his love for us, not just material items, right?
Right.
As the male, the patriarch of the family, oftentimes many people say, as long as he's providing, he's doing what he needs to do. We can go
It's
in a
more
whole,
to that.
there's
It's
more to it.
more to it. Yes.
So had he understood the pertinence of sitting all of us down and realizing that that too is an act of love in order to express his wishes, then that would have helped. I 1000% believe that would have helped us prevent some of the heartache and grief that we've experienced after his passing.
Yeah.
And also coming from us as the children, it absolutely became frustrating.
Hmm.
You
Yes.
feel as if you're speaking to a brick wall. Someone who does not want to hear what you have to say because he and or maybe she, depending on your situation, are just so accustomed to always having the lead. And with that, I realized over time that it wasn't necessarily because the control factor was still so strong as to why we faced hurdles and challenges with getting things accomplished. I know it was because they're scared.
Hmm. But don't you also, but and not to cut you off or anything, but as you were talking, I'm thinking about, I think that um people certain of a certain age, they just were raised a certain way, because I can't imagine my dad sitting down with us and talking about, okay, when I go on, well, he said this in passing, I don't want you all to spend all this money on me when I die. Just put me in one of them crate box and just put me in the ground. Don't you spend all the money, because I'm gone. Just saying things in passing, but he's never sat down with us and had a conversation. Now, we had a family meeting one day. My parents are divorced and we were raised with my mom. And so as adults, one day, probably about 6 years ago, he called a family meeting. Might have been a little bit longer than that. So everybody was calling out like, what's going on? What's it? It had nothing to do with finances at all.
Mm.
Nothing to do. Well, there is a blended family because my dad's wife, she has children. And then my dad has 4 children with my mom. But um, I can't say blended because we weren't like raised together. Whenever he would pick us up, we would go over to the girlfriend's house, but never like you would consider a blended family. Because my daddy does not play when it comes to money. And so when that incident happened, we was like, well, Dad, we really need to talk about some things. We need to talk about, he just brushed it off. So I don't think that, I feel like certain age groups, that's just not something that's going to happen. So if your father was still alive and this situation came up, how would you approach him? Because I'm sure there are a lot of us out here whose parents, like my dad's still alive, my mom's still alive, but my mom, she's battling a health issue, and I have medical power of attorney, so that's been a whole nother thing with her. She has Alzheimer's,
Mm.
so that's a different story. But my dad, so how would you approach us? How would you approach him so that we're out here, that we can maybe take notes and say, okay, I'm gonna do what Veronica suggested.
Thank you for that question. I would just ask the parent, what is your wish for me once you're gone?
You
And have them think, what is your wish?
you
What
mean
is your
for us? You like I would say to my dad, "What do you want?" Wow.
yeah, yes. Because oftentimes most parents, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, especially as being a parent myself, you want the best for your kids, right?
Hmm.
You want your children to continue your legacy through your bloodline and live in fulfillment with whatever that may be in the happiest terms, correct? What you don't want is to have your child having to deal with
Mm,
the loss not of you alone. That's hard enough to not hear your parent voice again, but then to have to clean up any
yeah.
situation. When you have that extra baggage, that extra work, it does not allow you to properly grieve
That's true.
the loss of your parent correctly. Grief is hard enough. We all know it goes through 5 stages, and that too is an up and down situation. That alone should have the space that it deserves for
Mhm.
each person to be able to process. If you have to deal with the fact of anger, not because you miss your parent, but because something didn't go right, the anger, the betrayal, any type of loss and frustration, there is like a fall from grace that takes place in the children's eyes of the parents. What parent wants that?
Yeah.
So why would you add to your child's grief by not handling your business properly before you transition? I mean, ultimately, we all know at the end of the day, what are the 2 things they say that are guaranteed in life? Death and taxes. It is unavoidable.
Yes, it's so
Point blank,
right.
period. So I would ask the parent exactly like, what are your wishes? And if none of that, after your father or your mother speak, it doesn't include anything remotely around you suffering because I didn't finish this, or you're suffering because my estate is in probate, which is a whole nother topic that needs to be discussed within our community. I believe
Ah,
that should be avoided like the plague.
yeah.
Then if you hear that they're saying at the end of the day they want you to be happy, hold on to the memories of the good times, then you say, great, now help me do that. And you do that by doing this.
Oh, I love it. And you know what I like about what you just said, Veronica, is that you came from both sides. You came from the side of being a parent and what you would want for your children. And as a child, what you wish your father had have done for you, which I love because my listeners, they may be the child or the parent. So preparing on both sides is so incredibly smart and it would definitely help out. So now I'm sitting with my dad, you're sitting with your dad, and we've asked the question, Dad, what do you want for me when you're gone?
Mhm.
And he's gone, they both. What, and they don't say the things that we need to hear. So, what are the things that we need to say to them and say, okay, well, Dad, you need to go and you need to get a wheel. Dad, you need to do this, that, and the other. Tell us some things that we need to suggest to our parent that they need to get in order. And remembering that some of our parents are older and they may have that mindset that you were talking about earlier, no, that's my personal business. So help us to kind of like figure out what we need to ask them or what we need to suggest to them that they should have in order.
Okay. So after, if you ask the question and they don't answer completely in the way that they need to, I honestly would then just continue the conversation to help them see, if it's not done, the ramifications that can take place, such as, slightly different topic, well, scenario, but many people have normalized probate within our community. And we do feel as if you get a simple will, that will take care of everything. But 9 times out of 10, it doesn't. So what happens is you, here we go, because it's coming to me now. I feel like
I
the
got you. I got you. God is
mind
downloading it. So we
yes,
need,
a download.
yes, he's downloading because he knows this is what we need to hear. So yes.
Most people don't want anyone else in charge of their finances. They want to keep it in control. If it is going into probate, you lose control.
Good
There's a
point.
huge, huge possibility at the end of the day, after the least amount of time I have seen an estate go through probate is 6 months. That's still a long amount of time for someone to have to
Wow.
handle business while they mourn your loss. But probate can last depending on the situation, all of the players that are involved can last years, 2 years, 3 years.
Oh,
If to if you can bring that home for your individualized scenario to that parent to say, hey, if we don't get our ducks in a row, here is a great possibility that your estate's going to end up in probate. And then some government, the state government, gets to decide who is your actual executor or executrix. Why, who is that? What you want?
oh, that's a good way of putting it. I like that. To
You,
give
you
them the example. That's really good because I never thought about it that way because now the courts get to decide what to do with your money versus you just go ahead and you just say this is what I want and put it in writing, get it notarized and to do that so that your wishes can be carried out. Oh,
That's
that's
correct.
good. That's
That's
really good. What other advice would you give us, let's say let's move beyond our parents, let's
okay.
look at ourselves, let's look at a single person or an entrepreneur or someone who has their own business. What advice would you give us to help us to be better prepared?
Wonderful. I would take some time with myself and get create that space because in this busy world it's very hard to do such but you must reflect on your ultimate goal, your ultimate dreams. In the perfect world, what do I want? So for a person who is single, they may say, well, it doesn't matter, but it does.
It
think,
does.
think about whether or not, let's say you do have, even if you do not have children, you may have something that's near and dear to your heart.
Mhm.
I actually have a client who is in his 60s. He has raised his children. He's done an excellent job, and he says, Veronica, all the time, I'm just going to work until it's time for me to go, and my children are well off. I just don't know what to do with this money, and I keep saying to him, hey, there has to be a cause, or there has to be
Mhm.
something near and dear to your heart. Like, most of us are not just living out here and don't care about any and everything that goes on. So think about what you can donate to, how you can contribute, and make sure your estate gets applied correctly for your goals and your wishes in that way. It, single or not, that can be done. As an entrepreneur, who we work so hard to build up our babies. Point blank,
Mhm.
period. Our businesses are our babies, and you don't want that to go by the wayside. So you have to come up with a contingency plan just in case.
Oh, that is
Most of
so
us,
good.
live in the way of it's never going to happen to me. But I think after 2020, we all know the craziest stuff can happen. So
Yes.
ultimately, a contingency plan, even if you don't know if a successor would be willing to step in for you immediately, there are firms out there that can help you strategize and put those things into place. So that way, all of your hard work and efforts aren't wasted.
So all you need to do is set aside some time, decide. So let me just make sure I go back to what you were just saying. For even for just for me, for myself, is I just need to sit down and decide what do I want my legacy to be financially.
Yes.
What do I want to leave? Who do I want my house to go to? Who do I want my car to go? Who do I want the banking accounts to? What do I want to do? Is there a school that I want to have a portion of my money? Just sit down and maybe just jot it down and write it out and then circle back and follow up. We're going to someone, or if you don't want to go to someone, look it up online to figure out, okay, what documents do I need to put these things in place? you know Do they need to be notarized? Do I need a lawyer for this? What do I need to do to make sure that every single thing is put into place?
Correct.
That kind
Correct.
of like sums it up. So we need to sit down, single women, entrepreneurs, people in general, parents, children, you need to sit down and decide what you want. Oh my God, Veronica, that is so good. Do you have any other advice that you want to leave with us to help us? Maybe a question that I didn't ask or something that maybe I didn't cover that you would think would be very beneficial to us?
I would just say to look at, continue to look at your overall dreams and wishes and understand that they can come to light by either setting up a will, a trust, and adding the additional pieces to the puzzle, because what that does, it creates a magic box for you and your family. What happens there is that you are still in control and you still get to say how not only do you want your finances to be applied afterwards when you're gone, but how your name is remembered.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. And one other thing that I want to just say, you need to let someone know where this paperwork is and where this thing is. You go through all that process and you do all of that, and then you go on to glory or wherever you go, and nobody knows where it is. Nobody knows where the paperwork is. Nobody knows. So at least, I don't know, put it somewhere, write a letter, put it in your grandmama's Bible that you didn't have for 15 years, somewhere so that people will know where to go to get it.
That's
Isn't that
important.
that is
That's
so
one thing,
important?
so important. I do encourage everyone, and we may not have enough time for this, but I do encourage everyone, even if it's just one person, refer to him or her or your close family members that you know you can trust with following your
Hmm.
instructions. Refer to them as your legacy crew.
Ooh, I like that.
Get them by, I like to use names and acronyms and things of that nature because it sticks. It helps,
Yeah.
stick closer in with one person's heart. And so if you can come up with this tight-knit legacy crew, you can give them your legacy blueprint. Because when things happen, they will happen somehow, some way, your legacy crew will get your blueprint and put things into place.
Oh, that's kind of like, if you think about it, it's like your bridesmaid when you get married. That person carries out all your wishes and makes sure all those. Oh, that's good. Veronica, girl, I knew you was gonna bring it. I love it. So please tell us where we can find you and what you have going on. I know that you have an anthology that's out. I know that. So please give us some information about that so that we can support you in that. But if there are people out there listening that say, I like Veronica, I need to talk to her, I need to get in touch with her, give us your information.
Yes. My website is Carnelian Wealth Solutions. That is spelled CARNELIAN, wealthsolutions.com. I am also on LinkedIn underneath Veronica Rodgers with a D. And Carnelian Wealth Solutions is on Facebook as well, and on Instagram at Carnelian WS. And yes, I am so excited to announce that this anthology of 15 women within the financial services industry, including yours truly, our book is being released on International Women's Day, which is March 8th, this Friday. So excited.
Oh,
It is called Financial Trendsetters, and you will get to take a deep dive into the financial services industry and the impact that we as women are having and forging the path for more women to join us to make sure we get our finances in order. So that can be found on Amazon. We are best-selling. We hit the bestseller rank for our pre-launch a couple weeks ago within financial services and women in business. So excited, and I know it will add tremendous value to everyone who reads it.
Oh, I am so excited for you. So I will be looking out on Friday. I'm marking on my calendar, going to order the book. So listen, I'll make sure that all the information is in the notes. So if you want to, you don't have to try to remember what she said. I'll have them in the notes so we can go out and we can support her. So Veronica, thank you so much for being here. I'm telling you, you have dropped some nuggets on us and we are going to get ourselves in order financially.
Oh, thank you so much for having Miss B. It's been a pleasure.
Yay.